Hello, everybody. Welcome to DnDTime Worlds. As always, I gotta get my intros down a little bit better on that smooth transitions on OBS, but we will soon. It is good to be here tonight. I'm excited to build some worlds with y'all tonight. I guess for starters, how is everyone? Yeah, Shiva, always watching. When I was looking at the document earlier, I saw Shiva watching me go through all of the things that had been, he had suggested on it over the last week, and kind of going through it and passing judgment on them, which was, it felt a little awkward to like be going through and just being like, I can't use that, like sort of going through on stuff as I knew that he was there, but it was fun. Also, I see Opals hanging out. That sounds a lot like Loth. Or is that a Lolth? Yeah, it does sound a little bit, it does sound a little bit like that. I was thinking, I want to say it's Lionel Richie. I don't know if anyone knows who does the song, I Always Feel Like Somebody's Watching Me. But whoever writes that song or performs that song, that's how it felt. I was reminded of it. But yes, it is DnDTime Worlds, and as such, we are going to be doing some world building. So, on our schedule tonight, what I had for us was races and classes. Was going to be the, yes, indeed, Opal, all hail the Spider Queen. The Spider Queen. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Tangerine Parasol. Rockwell. I owe you 1 point of my appreciation. I don't know what that's worth, but you have it. Thank you. So, races and classes was what I had planned for us tonight, but in kind of thinking about it, it seems to me like races and classes, based on the world that we've built so far, aren't necessarily something that we're going to really have a lot of kind of room to mess around in, because we already know kind of what races, for one thing, are going to be prevalent, because we've built up our factions. We know by the sort of gods that govern them what races are prevalent in their respective kingdoms, just like most of the dwarves in the world are from Cherish's kingdom. So we could go through and detail out a little bit more the sort of intricacies of what it means to play an individual race in this particular world. But I think that's a little bit nitty-gritty, and I also don't know if that's necessarily a fun thing to source and kind of discuss with y'all, because that's usually, that's going to be more kind of dialogue-heavy, and if I was world building at least and was going to write that stuff out, I would probably do that on my own time and just think about it. It's probably a hard thing for us to brainstorm here. So rather than really just spend a lot of time like talking about cultures of individual races, I thought we could at least kind of, you know, peer over it and talk about it a little bit. Maybe talk a little bit about what it means to be a cleric in this world. Is that something that is definitely significant? Adrian P. just subscribed with a tier 1 sub. Adrian P. subscribed for 6 months in a row. Thank you very much. Adrian P. Hello, it's good to see you tonight. Also, 6 months is such an incredibly long time. Much love to you, my friend. So, yes, we could talk a little bit about what it means to play different classes in this world, since we've done such a sort of pantheon, such a pantheon-centric world thus far. Like I said, there's probably some significance to being a cleric. There's probably some significance to being a paladin. We could talk about what the mechanics are of being an oracle if we wanted to do that. That could be very fun. Psychopath finally got the notification for Worlds. Well, I'm glad that you did, and I'm glad that you're here. But yes, I've heard that there's been a little bit of a hard time kind of with those coming up. Hopefully that's not something that persists in the future, but I am bad at technology, so I can make no guarantees. I am in particularly bad at technology. It's a miracle that worlds can happen at all, and it is all thanks to who may be lurking already, one Trust of Flumph, and his particular brand of ingenuity. So, yeah, we could do some classes and talk about that kind of stuff, but the big thing that I thought we could do today, And on the subject of Trust a Flump, he was mentioning this the other day, that it might be fun to do holidays. I think that that was an excellent idea, and so I think that's what we're going to do today, is talk about the calendar of our world and the holidays. I think that's going to be a really fun change of pace. We can go into as much or as little detail on the holidays that we end up coming up with. We either like really flesh out a couple of them, or just make a ton of little ones, probably somewhere in between is where we'll end up. And yeah, I want to go through and do holidays. Get into the, we can obviously do some kind of Halloween-y type thing, some kind of Carnival of Souls-y themed thing, as we're moving into Halloween now, so I think that will be a lot of fun. So that's going to be kind of the big focus for tonight, is messing around with holidays. Psychopath, sorry I missed the last two. Hope you haven't done too much with Vosto and Lux. Well, we have done a fair amount with Vosto and Lux. We've kind of built them up as actually one interesting thing that we did with Vosto and Lux is Lux is now Vosto's dad. As we were kind of expanding the relationships of the pantheons and things like that, and we've really kind of fleshed out the pantheon, and I would go so far as to say the pantheon is done. I mean, it's never truly done. Nothing in world building is ever just, you know, you can look at it and say this is complete, but for the most part our pantheon is finally settled in, and I think that that's going to be the thing that we rest everything else upon as we continue to finish out and kind of round out our world. So yeah, right now I'm going to copy this link and give it to all of you. If you are watching and you would like to follow along on the document as we're writing things and taking notes, that is the link to view this document. Right now it is closed to edit, but on the off days when Worlds is not currently live, so after the stream tonight, if I don't remember, someone yell at me and remind me. I think that was Psychopath. That was just the collective will. That was just the flow of everyone around talking. I don't know if I remember anyone specific, but yeah, we were doing a lot of fun stuff like that. So definitely check it out, because all the information on all the gods that we've fleshed out is on the doc now, and they're kind of a little bit more neat. At some point, I'm going to go through and clean up some of the clean up some stuff that's redundant, because there's definitely a lot of these gods are mentioned in more than one place. But yeah, so I'm going to be doing. Vosto is OP. Yeah, I changed one thing on Vosto, and that's another thing, is over the course of the week, so like I was saying, you can edit and work on this document. If you have ideas for worlds that you want to contribute, you can just go through and do that. Over the week, I've been saying week, but it's 2 weeks, as we do this every other Tuesday. And a lot of stuff got done over the past week. Y'all doing my work for me, in particularly, as I was saying at the beginning, Bionic Shiva did a ton of stuff. And so, over the course of the week, where we left off last time, we had fleshed out Cherish, we had fleshed out Karosha, Lux, Oniaraz, and I think we had just gotten started on Palin as we finished up, and now all of the remaining gods, Pelagios, Tizel, Vosto, Zeeth still needs a little bit of work, but Zeeth is pretty close. So yeah, that's what we kind of got. That's kind of what we got going on over the past week of people contributing and really helping. And again, if any of you want to do that, I know there was some ideas from a few different people kind of kicking around. And yeah, there's some awesome stuff done. What's any highlights? There's some cool. Oh yes, I see Bionic Shiva mentioning Joe. This is a cool addition that Shiva made over the course of this week. We were talking about how the evil gods use their kind of abilities to cheat in the game, and so you're only allowed to have 3 oracles, and Shiva put in Joe, the average human, who's an illegal 4th oracle that Pelagios uses to try and kind of hide from. In order to hide from the rules lawyer that we've established, Palin, it's just a very normal person, and he very rarely uses him to do anything, and he just kind of, you know, walks around and tries to look inconspicuous as he has an extra oracle in the fight, which is, I think, a very fun idea. And there's a couple of slots if you have ideas for oracles to still fill in. So if you got a cool homebrew thing that you've been wanting to, well, that you haven't gotten to get into your campaign yet, but you want to be in some campaign, then throw them out. What else? Alright, so another thing that we've been doing since the dawn of worlds, since the beginning of time, we have been working on picking out a name. Today is going to be the name today's the name that we finally get our name. So, for starters, we're going to vote on the names from last week, as we've been doing every week. And the names from last week that we have are Ghoul, Kunder, Godrisk, the Inklands, and Board World. Board World is very funny. I like how literal it is. So I'm going to give you all that straw poll right now. Please vote on what you want the name of the world to be. And then about halfway through the stream, maybe at 10 o'clock, I'm going to close this poll and open up a second poll, and that poll is going to contain the 4 winners from the 4 first episodes of DnDTime Worlds, and we're finally going to be able to call our world something, which I'm very excited about. So, please make your voice heard on this particular world. Very good. So, without further ado, we were going to... what names have we thus far? That's an excellent question. The 3 that are definitely going to be in the running are Osirum, Dios, and Empyreon. All very strong names. I won't say which one I am the most partial to at the moment, as I don't want to influence your opinions. But I don't know. There's one that I'm secretly pulling for. Perhaps I will reveal at the end. Yeah, I really like them all too. So, let's start talking a little bit about, and generally I would also kind of go through and talk about some of our core philosophy and the things that we're going over, but combine them together to make a super name. There was actually a submission in last week's like that, but I eliminated it because it was just too unpronounceable, and I didn't want to say it on stream all the time, because it would have made for terrible audio. I fumble over myself occasionally as it is, so I ended up cutting that one. Just as I've cut like one really other silly one. Oh yes, I also cut Risk the previous week because it's just the name of the board game, and I don't want to get in trouble from probably Hasbro, is the only company I can think of that makes board games, other than more indie companies, which I guess is a million companies that I can think of now that I've really considered the possibility. So yes, we're going to talk about races, and I think we're going to come back to that. I really just want to start with holidays. I want to get right into that kind of aspect, and if we want to, at a certain point, we feel that we've kind of really established a firm calendar for our world, we've really started to build some cool holidays, then we can go back and mess around with some of the race stuff, and maybe talk about classes as well. So, I'm just going to skip on right down, all the way to the bottom. We're going to talk about the calendar. Let's name a holiday Jeremy. Ah, I see that Jeremy is also on DnDTime. Just Jeremy, DnDTime says. I don't know why I'm typing and speaking at the same time. Yes, of course, I was going to say, this isn't Jeremy, this is Pete. Yeah, I'm talking, and I can type, actually, without even using my hands. It's pretty cool. So, a few questions that I have to kind of get us started on the calendar is, most worlds, I think, on the most part, when people are going into a homebrew world, pretty much everyone just assumes that time and seasons pass in very much the same way they do on our world. And that is smart, and I agree with it, and I think I would pretty much always do that in one of my campaigns. Well, actually, that's not true. In one of my personal campaigns, I run a pretty good calendar that I actually like a lot. That is not the traditional calendar, but I do that because I run this world a lot, and I'm very familiar with it, and I've had a lot of time that I've spent on world building it, and time is something that we also have on this one. This isn't really a haphazard world, it's one that we've considered everything with, if not carefully, we've at least made everything fit well together, and are spending a lot of time, making everything kind of go in. And we already have all holiday names coming in. Psychopath23 says, Dulcis Giving. The times all those who wish to avoid Vosto pranking them through the year give offerings of candy and gifts to Vosto. He's less likely to prank the ones who give him stuff. And that was the first thing I was going to say is, do you guys want to do something that is different than the traditional 7-day week, 12-month year, everything exactly 365 days in a year? And Tangerine Paracel says, can we have a 5-day week? And my response to that is, absolutely we can have a 5-day week. I like that a lot. There's no, I see no reason that, so how does time pass in this week? How long are days and seasons? A week is 5 days. And I also like the idea that, you know, in kind of figuring out our 5-day week, we'll figure out kind of the names of the days. I imagine that some of them, Oracle's Day, a day to celebrate all oracles and lavish them for their duty. 69 weeks in a year. So yeah, 5-day week is canon. 69 weeks in a year. I don't know about 69 weeks in a year. 5-day weeks, but a 13-month calendar. So then I guess there's also a question. I think before we figure out months, we have to decide. I think we have to decide how many days are in a year. So we have 365, just going standard from Tangerine. We have 345 days. And this is also going to be a fun math segment of the show, where afterwards we kind of figure out how one would logically divide the year up into 5-day segments in the year that we have. And I guess if we're doing 345, 200, that's a short year. I would really like, I mean, what about 300? Because then we could divide the seasons up into 3 months each, and also sort of, we could divide the world in very much the same way, you know, 3 months for a season, and each season, you know, takes up a quarter of the year, and we could do that if we had 300 as just a random kind of title. And it also makes sense to me that the kind of time frame would be the time frame would be a very even number, because this world was very intentionally and carefully created by the gods of it. So the fact that the world works out to exactly 300 days, that's not coincidence, that is very active, intelligent design. And I imagine that they treat the 300-day period as a round. That's like one round of the game. What about a season twice a year? I think that's a really cool idea, Psychopath. So week, 5 days. We're gonna go with year, 300 days, because that's a nice round number. So 2 seasons a year. So that would mean then, oh well, that throws off my thing. Never mind. We're going back with your thing, Shiba. If we're gonna do 2 seasons a year, I think 200's a little bit better for that, because then what we can do is, if we're going to do 4 seasons a year, that would mean that each season is 25 days long, and that's breakneck fast. Every season is 25 days. That is pretty crazy. That means that the weather is constantly shifting. It would be a little bit difficult to establish agriculture, I feel like, in a world like that. And Trustaflum was saying, what if the seasons are less traditional seasons and more specific to weather patterns? See, I think that works a lot better. Rather than it being sort of... and maybe we can describe our seasons in a little bit vaguer of terms. And maybe, like, were you thinking 2 cycles within the 200-day period that are identical? Or maybe we could just have 8 discrete things that are part of this weather cycle in the time period. For example, there is the... there is kind of what would be traditionally a summer, but then there is something that would be like a summer rainy season. And then it would transition into fall, but then there would be like the windy season of fall. Banaksheba says, yeah, because it's so hard to do agriculture in a world of magic. It is hard to do agriculture in a world of magic, because as much as magic helps, one, it's not, depending on our world, and our world is, I think, one that is a very traditional high fantasy, which means there's, you know, people who can do magic aren't the norm, they are exceptions. They are... It's not necessarily trivial for agriculture. There's a reason that there needs to be like a civilian populace doing stuff. But I imagine the gods also just cheated a little bit. You know, they just have kind of the... they put on cheat codes to make grow times faster and stuff like that. I mean, we can assume that the world is adapted to these large and quick fluctuations in climate and weather. So there's been a lot of stuff happening in chat that I have missed. So I'm going to go through Frogs throwing out Families Festival, a 2-day festival in which families that have familiars or pets as part of the family So it's just like a pet appreciation day. I like it. I'll throw that on the list, and we can kind of come back and look at these a little bit later, but I don't want to miss it now. Let me undo, and we're going to Control-Shift-V. Very good. So let's see. Farfel Vishtosh. Of course. It's good to always have you here with the Hello from the Magic Tavern references, Farfel. I love it. Trustaflump. So, differing lengths. Trustaflump says on the... I always call you Trustaflump when I see your name in chat because of habit, but Jeremy says regarding the length of the various seasons and weather patterns, Adrian P. says, nah, it's a Canadian word. There's a winter for 6 months and wet for 6 months. So you have cold, which is a season, and rain is a season. Sunny is a season. They're different lengths. You can have rain/sunny. Firestorm season. Can't forget the firestorms. And the lengths of the seasons are staggered, so every so often you get a day that's actually every season at once. Oh man, that sounds absolutely wild. So what is it? Oh, so you're saying that, like, they occur at... I'm trying to wrap my head around the thing you just said, because you've blown my mind, Jeremy. It sounds like you're saying that every season happens at a regular interval, but they're not in sync so that they're happening at once. So there's some season that's a neutral season that's happening when none of them are, and then there's like 8 different things rolling around a clock that can occasionally sync up into some kind of apocalypse. Is that... Am I reading what you're saying correctly? Because that's absolutely wild and I love it. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to write that down, and I'm going to think about how I'm going to write that down, but I think that's crazy. I like it a lot. Psychopath. Sunny sun, windy autumn, dry, cold, humid spring, sunny moon, still autumn, blizzard, cold, rainy spring. A California world where it's always between 60 and 80 always. I feel like you want, like, the San Francisco world where it's always between 50 and 70. Would be my ideal. Actually, no, I'd really miss it if there was no winter and autumn. I like the cold. Okay, yeah, it's like that makes more sense now. I thought you were just saying a bunch of stuff, but I see you've divided them up. Sunny sun, windy autumn. We're gonna make it. Alright, so seasons. We're just gonna make a heading for that. Seasons, because we're getting a lot of stuff. I love this stuff on seasons right now. This is awesome. Alright, seasons. 8 seasons in quotes, because they're not actually year. The seasons function a bit more like regular weather patterns that happen at delayed intervals. The temperature fluctuates evenly. So I think one thing that's going to happen is there always has to be a temperature. So I think there's weather and then there's temperature as the 2 deciding factors, and that's what's going to kind of produce this thing. So the temperature probably moves on kind of an even curve. It goes from hot to cold in a circle at, you know, a regular kind of pitch, reaching its highs and its lows at the same times every year. But the more strange things, like the weather patterns, happen at another interval that is moving kind of in conjunction with it. And maybe there's a few axes here. So there's these different things that are all kind of lining up. And I'm picturing kind of, in my mind, one of those spheres where the circles kind of rotate around each other on different axes, and it looks very cool. And that's kind of how the weather would function. So I think there's the scale... so maybe there's 3 scales, and I think one of those scales is precipitation / no precipitation. I can't believe I spelled that right. I thought I was going to absolutely thought I was going to absolutely destroy the word precipitation, but I did it, and that's what counts. The number scale is going to be hot and cold, and I imagine the precipitation, no precipitation scale, it probably favors no precipitation, but what's like one more kind of more extreme and wild scale, and it can be a bunch of things, it doesn't have to be binary like the other two, that could also kind of be happening at the same time as these other ones to produce all of these like pseudo-seasons that are calculatable. Like, I imagine that there's careers in this world where there are people who very closely study the weather and have learned the precise and regular patterns with which it functions, and therefore can very much... third scale, aggression. You're saying how angry the weather is that day, which is a funny way of putting it, but I think you're implying intensity by that, or is it just emotional? Is the weather just emotional? Either way, I'm going to go with intensity, but I do think it would be funny if the... Oh, we're doing two different types of... boop. Boop. Intensity, I like that. Alright, once again, as it is impossible, as it is wont to do, I have once again fallen behind track. So we're going to go back through and read some stuff. Max Meister, wait, 25-day seasons in 200 days. That would be 8 seasons, that would be correct, but I think we've moved away from that. We're doing just kind of like a pretty unique, I've never heard of a system like this personally, pretty unique kind of season system that we're resting on here. But yes, there have been a lot of seasons. Frog, why no stormy season? Gotta throw in some dangerous weather, combines hurricane and tornado season at once. They'll need to be very short of a season. So I think the way we're gonna do stormy seasons is with wind. No wind, and that's on a cycle. So there's periods where it's windy and periods where it's not, and all of these things are kind of switching back and forth at regular but different intervals. So there's going to be times where it's the middle of summer, or, you know, it's the middle of summer and it's the extremely high wind season and it's the extreme intensity situation, but it's no precipitation, and that would be tornado season. That would be the season in which everyone just hides in their homes and waits for the awful, awful winds to go by. And then there's also just the very pleasant season where... there's also just the very pleasant season where it is kind of right in the middle between hot and cold, zero intensity, maybe a tiny bit of wind, and no precipitation, as everything just kind of aligns and works, or maybe just the slightest bit of precipitation to create big fluffy clouds, and that is kind of your ideal mixing. And these things are predictable and not predictable in the way that modern weather is, where we are kind of just like watching long-scale patterns, but just very... just very sort of regular and kind of mathematically predictable weather. Doesn't require much observation. You can always know. The Farmer's Almanac is 100% accurate because people have figured it out by now. So Tangerine Parasol saying summer snow. See, that would be a thing that in the way that we're doing it here wouldn't work out. There wouldn't be summer snow because there would be precipitation in the hot weather, which would be then turned to water. So maybe we can come up with a way that we can also make that work. And I imagine the weather is also to a degree influenced by region, what kind of part of the world that they are in, because I'm sure there are certain, and we've discussed this when we were going over the regions of the world, there are climates and things like that. There are, you know, places that are kind of frigid tundras. There are kind of barren deserts. So I imagine this isn't 100%. This is in sort of the more neutral territories. This is how weather functions. And that spreads out to those other places. So much. I cannot keep up at all. Agent Pete, well, Pete, in actuality, the seasons depend mostly upon the distance and rotation in relation to the sun. Would it only that we had a sun. It's stressful. It's weird. I wonder why nobody's done a season system like this before. Because it's absolutely wild. We have Augustus, or Augustus, but it looks more like Augustus. Either way, good evening to you as well. Welcome to DnDTime Worlds. Max Meister, can there be weather events, hail, acid rain, tornadoes, hurricanes? The answer is absolutely, there can be those things. There absolutely can be those things, and I think, you know, there's also just going to be some kind of RNG in how they function out, and I do like the idea that once, maybe we can, it'll take some while to figure out exactly how it functions, and I feel like this is something for someone very industrious to do on an off day, where they go through and figure out these scales and calculate what seasons they would make regularly, because I'm sure some years just don't have certain seasons the way this is set up. Like, there might not be a humid spring some years, but like every 4th year, the humid spring happens, which I think is really cool. So I think we've moved away from the 25-day seasons, and the seasons are this really abstract thing, which I'm in love with. But actually, there needs to be periods where it's bright outside 24 hours and dark outside 24 hours. Maybe that's region dictated. Maybe it's just the lights. Maybe the light just kind of works differently depending on what part of the world that you are in. I think that could be pretty cool. Is there a volcano that erupts and snows ash? Yes, I actually think that's something that we kind of have. I don't know if it's necessarily precisely that, but I know that we built a whole big volcano system. I know somebody wanted to call it Wana, Haka, and Lugi, which I think was Sword, if you're here, Sword, which was, I thought, a pretty good joke, but we named it something else. I cannot remember it off the top of my head right now, as there's so many ideas that got put out that day, and we do have a, we do have a volcano system that we've established. I guess just trying to get ideas on how to DM a game with 2 18-year-olds who want to play a wizard and a monk. That is a cool party. I would absolutely. I love the 2-man party. So I hope we can get you some inspiration tonight. You need to stop doing seasons until you figure out your sky first. How many suns and moons and asteroids you got affecting this planet? And Psychopath, time to make a rollable weather chart. Yeah, please do. So, see, the thing about the world that we're in, Adrian P, is it doesn't really have suns and moons and asteroids. It is an entirely controlled environment, so the gods just kind of dictate these things. There isn't really a sun, except for kind of the illusion of there being a sun, and the whole world is kind of coated by this thing called the Everveil that traps everyone within the plane. Like, you can't go into outer space here, you just run into infinite mist, and then get sucked into nowhere. Leon, give him a paladin dog companion. Lay on tongue for healing. That sounds pretty funny. The Magma Trinity, thank you, Opal. The Magma Trinity, yeah, the big giant volcanoes, and maybe those kind of parts of the world. Those are the ones where you start seeing these more unique weather patterns, because the region also would affect. Sword saying, how about a season that affects the local area greatly, like mating and migration seasons by large creatures like dragons or mammoths or dinos? I think that now, I think that's kind of starting to move into the realm of holidays, which I am very much into. But I would like to, I would like to establish, just name our days of the week, for starters. And I don't think we want to name any of them day, but I do like we don't want to do Glern's Day and Schlern's Day. Those are the 2 best creative names I could come up with on the spot. I don't want to end them in day, but I think it would be cool to have some kind of consistency to them in some way. If you have a cool idea for that, anyone let me know. Hello, Diadems. I don't know if I already said hello, but hello, Diadems. It is good to see you tonight. Very good. So, what do we want to do for days of the week? I imagine they do have some kind of names. Maybe they're just kind of numerical in nature. Maybe it's a very simple in like the kind of the language of this world. They're just kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's the 10-day week, nice and easy. We're 5-day week locked, Shiva. We're already locked on 5-day week. So we know for a fact on this 200-day year that there are 40 weeks in a year. Yeah, we're locked on 5. We're locked on 5 diadems. I like that. That was Tangerine Parasol that said that, and I was very into that idea. So I'm just gonna go ahead and name the first day of the week. And what I do when I need some kind of inspiration for a name is, this is a trick that you can use from time to time when you need it. I just take some object around me and look at it and try and come up with a name from that by combining words together. So right now I'm looking at this box of Icons of the Realm Waterdeep Dragon Heist that was actually given to me by Maddie Moore. It's happened to be sitting here. So what I do is I will look at text on any object and then just look at words and think about how I could mispronounce them to make new words. So the word that struck out to me randomly was conspire. And I'm looking at that and I'm seeing the word spire, and I pronounced it in my mind as spire, which I think is a very good fantasy-sounding word, and arbitrarily deciding now that the first day of the week is spire, but pronounced in such a way that it's very clear that it's not the word spire. Okay, so we have some ideas from Max Meister. Can we name a day bagels? We can name a day bagels, but it's going to be pronounced. It's going to be pronounced bay. It's going to be pronounced bagels. It's going to be pronounced bagels, like that. So that way no one knows that it is bagels, except for you and for me, and that's going to be our little secrets. I'm going to take one of yours, Max. We got Mandra, Waedrar, Thrak, Karlum, and Gerend. I like Mandra. Mandra sounds easy, because I feel like days of the week are going to be a little bit easier to say. And maybe actually in that... Spire is a bad one in that regard, because I actually really like bagels, because I think then we can end everything with an S so it feels like I have a rhythm, give everything two sort of syllables, so that way all of them fit together nicely. So Spirus, or end them all in kind of, we're gonna do ulls. They're all gonna end, they're all gonna end in ulls. Spirals, bagels, mondrels. We got Jared Day and Pete Day. We'll give Jared Day. Gerals. And D Forgotten One says, D and Die. And we got, so how are we gonna make that one work? Dendels. We got Spirals, Bagels, Mondrels, Gerals, and Dendels. And I'm actually going to change... oh, wait, no, I can't change Gerals. We're going to... Gerals and Darrels. I like it. It's the... is it Gerals or Darrels? I can really picture people in a world having these names. Yep, I was on the same... we were on the same page. I can picture... people in the world kind of having these names that are all very close to each other, so that way that it's just kind of easy. So we got Spirals, we got Bagels, we got Mondrels, we got Gerals, we got Darrels, and those are our days of the week, which are goofy, but I like them. So we got 4 weeks, 4 weeks in a month, 10 months a year. Every month is named after a god, with a 10th month named after the world. I think that is a pretty cool idea. The months are named after gods, and the way we've kind of set up seasons and weather patterns, months are not really correlated with any kind of natural flow in the seasons, which I think is very interesting. Maybe at bare minimum they're built around the hot-cold scale, which is the simplest of them, because that would probably make sense, that there would be some type of marker that they would use to kind of create their years. And that's the kind of the simplest of them, the closest one to the seasons. I think that works very well. The year starts with the Lux. Yes. Yeah, first month of the year is Lux. So the years are... it's the first Spirals in Lux! It's the first Bagels in Lux! Bagels and locks. It's very close. There's a joke there that I don't feel like making. Trust a Flump, this is a turn-based game, right? The exact rules of the gameplay are a little bit vague, but I think there's an implication that behind the scenes there are turns, although the exact kind of nature of how the gods take their turns are something that we never established. And maybe when we're doing the Rebellion, we'll also work on that. So yeah, we got our days. We got a pretty good idea of how the calendar is going to work now. It's starting to come together. I really like the months named after the gods things. So make the months vaguely implicative of turns. Indeed, that's what I was thinking as well. Because originally I was saying that a year would be one round of play. So making the months kind of work like the turns like that makes a ton of sense. And also. And I really think this works well in the lore of the world. The gods are clearly most active during their respective months. And we can probably get into a lot of detail here on how the actual turns work and what they're allowed to do on the turn. Maybe they're only allowed to, like, influence the world during their months, and now we're really starting to kind of, like... We're really starting to kind of shape the world. So maybe an oracle only gets to hear from their god, like, annually. So the god's turn is their month. Exactly. I think that works really well. And that's starting to make it clearer how the world would function. The passage of time would really have a lot of implications on the way that you would eventually run this world. I think that's a really cool idea that we're starting to get into here. I like Luxurst, Lux first. Honestly, I feel like it's cool to just name it straight up. Like, the first month is Lux. It is also their god, but they just call the first month Lux, because maybe that's how they named their god. Maybe they named the gods by what they called the months, and that's how the gods kind of instilled this basic idea. Or maybe they, you know, maybe it's just clear. But I like the idea of it just being straight up the months. Also, that would really kind of encourage players, like, incorporating it so directly in this way, and this is good world building to kind of teach this world to your players, because it's a pretty complicated one, and it very much hinges on them starting to kind of understand and putting things together. Excuse me. Running a campaign in this world hinges and really works if the players put together all the little pieces and clues that we've baked into it and combine them into... They start to build the picture of how this world functions in their brain. So I think just naming them after the gods will kind of help hammer down the point. Doesn't kind of obfuscate anything really on the surface. So I'm going to go with that. I really like that. Can still gain power in other months, but more influence in their own month. Well, I think they only have direct influence during their own months, but if the people that are within their kingdom, Aguastus, if the people within their kingdom make strides for them on other gods' months, then great. Then awesome. It still happens. Like, they just can only directly influence the world during their own month. Also, Raventail Blacktalon's here. Hello, Raventail. Welcome. It's good to have you with us tonight. So, we got months. The gods are named... Months are named after the gods, built around the hot and cold. Year is 200 days. Year represents a round of play. And I'm actually going to go back to the rules. This is a list we haven't looked at in a while because we've kind of felt like we were done with it, but I think that this is a really important rule. So, where do we want to put this one? Probably after the oracles. So, actually, we're going to put this at number 8. How do we do this? There we go. And pardon my silence while I type for a moment here. And then I imagine the last kind of month of the year is kind of this off round where no one does anything, and all of the or either all of them are active or none of them are active. I think either one of those is cool, and we can figure that out at another time. But so we've got a good idea of how the world works, and I was thinking before we've ended up with a kind of wild thing that I've never seen before, but So I thought maybe, like, the weather and the way the seasons progress would in some way inform our holidays, but we didn't have, like, a lot of set seasons, although I do kind of like these ones that Psychopath came up with. I'm going to keep them there, to maybe we can work those a little bit better. Because, yeah, I was thinking that, you know, the holidays would be in some ways influenced by the weather. Last month is when all the turns resolve. That's definitely a cool idea. 10th month belongs to no gods, and all gods have influence. All are active. Yeah, that could be also very cool. We'll have to think a little bit about it. Oracle's Day happens on the last day of the 9th month, so they can prepare for the upcoming onslaught. Brutal. Yeah, I mean, that's probably true. But what I really would like to do is come up with some holidays, and we have a couple already here. So we'll go with the ones, and we have Family's Festival, which was submitted by D Forgotten One, which was just like a pet appreciation day, which I'm really into, honestly. It's just like it's just a very wholesome sounding holiday. Pet Appreciation Day. Dulcis Giving. I cannot remember what Dulcis Giving was, and I should have copy and pasted it. I won't be able to go back. If you submitted Dulcis Giving, please remind me of what... Oh, that was you, Psychopath. Please remind me what Dulcis Giving's actual kind of quote-unquote thing was. Date. We don't need to... well, I guess it would be the... so what do we decide on? Since there's 10 months, and we have 200 days in a year, okay, so it would be the 4th week in a given month. So we could do something like the creating a date on our calendar. We could do something like the second bagels in Lux. Would be a legitimate date in our world. And arbitrarily, I'm just going to make this date the second bagels in Lux. Which is just a funny date. But that would probably be how dates were written in this world. 23rd of Vosto. So the 23rd of Vosto. I don't think a month has 20... I think a month only has 20 days. That would actually be... that would actually be too many days. Let's just go with, like, 17 as an arbitrary one that I'm picking right now. So we'll say the 17th... Oh, yes, because of course it would be in Vosto's month. What am I talking about? Now I remember what the holiday was. The 17th, which would be the... that would be the 4th bagels in Vosto. I really like getting to say the 4th bagels in Vosto. The 4th bagels in Vosto. It is Dulcis Giving. And on that holiday, people stay indoors and put out treats for Vosto in hopes that they will remain untricked. That's really delightful. It's really delightful. Just kind of... That starts to really build into the culture and the mythology of this world, where the gods start to feel like gods, because Vosto probably doesn't actually go around and trick people on every 4th bagels in his month. That's probably just because, like, that happened one time, and ever since then, people have just kind of, like, assumed that it's going to happen every year, but it doesn't. It does not happen every year. And that was just, like, a really ancient tradition, and people kind of have just been preparing for it ever since, is I imagine how this holiday developed. And now it's kind of separated from it, and it's just sort of like a fun, lighthearted myth thing, like putting out cookies for Santa. Oh, you gotta put out cookies for Vosto, or he'll tie your shoelaces together, is kind of how I imagine just like a regular sort of, you know, commoner would view the holiday. Okay, random thought about months. Can they be in a different order every year? It happens based on God strength at the end of the year. I, on one hand, really like the idea that they're in different order, but I feel like people wouldn't get into the habit of changing their years about. Because I do like the idea that the turn order is kind of like randomized at the end of every round, and that would be sort of how the gods took their turns. Because from a gameplay standpoint, that makes a lot of sense. But I like the idea of it just being consistent, because this world is already super wacky, and I think having a very clear way that that progresses is just going to be good for clarity. And maybe, like... Maybe it's like the positioning, like the rankings have been so the same for long enough now. Maybe that's how they did it in the old days, and the rankings have been so the same for a long time now that nothing's really, like, changing. Magical adjusting calendars, and again, I think that's also a cool idea, but it starts to get into kind of like this breaking of the illusion, because the people of this world don't know how kind of the world works, and then I think that gets too deep into, like, this world is very strange. Why did the gods give us magically adjusting calendars to tell us when they're going to, like, do stuff this year? Augustus, question: have you decided on cities in your world? We've established, like, a bunch of different places. We have some towns. We have a couple of cities that we've talked about, but we haven't, like, built all of the cities. If you have an idea for that, we can definitely take it, and I'll throw it in the cities section. And an inciting incident for an adventure is the months to change for no apparent reason. Yeah, that absolutely would be a really cool thing to run in this campaign, because this world's been around for thousands of years. And so if all of a sudden the people have kind of gotten into this pattern for the last, like, 600 or 700 years where the seasons function in a certain way, and then during the month where they expect there to be kind of prosperity, it moves into Lux's season or whatever, it is instead somebody else's time. Maybe it's Philogios' time, and there's, like, a lot of chaos going on in the world, and the kind of dark forces are moving, and everyone gets really confused about why that's happening. Or, you know, the oracles of those people, the gods are like, how come they always speak to us around this time? Why are we not being communicated with now? We need their guidance, and they're not here for us. The gods have abandoned us. I think you could do a lot of really cool stuff and kind of playing with expectations in that day. In that way, is what I meant to say. Also, a reminder that it is 9:50 now. We're going to decide on the name of our world today. I have right here the straw poll. We've had voting open for a while. I'm going to close voting at 10 o'clock on... These are the names for this week. We have Ghoul, Kandor, Godrisk, the Inklands, and Board World. So I'm going to link that straw poll again here. Make sure you get your vote in. We are going to... once we do this vote, do another discrete vote where we collect all of the winners from the last 4 weeks and they battle against each other head-to-head to finally decide the name of the world, which I'll be very excited to stop calling it The World and instead call it whatever it is that we're going to call it. So cool. So we're talking about holidays. So we got Dulcis Giving. I'm sure that I've missed some... I'm sure that I've missed some holidays in the kind of chunk from before. We have a Labor Day. We'll throw a Labor Day on here. See what might be in the context of this world. During the middle of the last month for Familias Festival. And who do we want to be the last month? I'm just going to go by the alignment chart, which would make the last month Chaotic Evil, which is going to be, assuming we're going left to right and then top to bottom, which is going to be Karosha. Oh, wait. Whoops. And for Families Felices, that's going to be the, let's just say it's the second Spirals in Karosha. Is it Bagels, or is it Spirals, or is it Gerals, or is it Durals? I can't remember them all, but I'll get them down someday. And also, those are names of the week that your players would probably remember because they have that, like, tying thing at the end. Is it Spirals? They'll definitely remember Bagels. Everyone's going to remember Bagels. And then Gerals and Daryls will be the next one to remember. So Augustus was throwing out an idea for a city, I assume. In a campaign where I was DMing, when I was in the Marines, I had a hidden were-creature city that only allowed neutral and good characters in, or creatures in. It was hidden deep into a forest. Miriam Lunaria, a female were-tiger ranger, was the leader of the city. I think that's definitely very cool. I imagine that would be something that would be in Oniaras' kingdom, which is kind of a forest, very heavily nature kingdom. He's a neutral good god. And we're just going to copy and paste your idea here. And we're going to throw it right in our places section. Ba-ba-ba-ba. And we're going to insert row below. And I don't know if you had a name for it, but I am going to put down just where creature city, and we can also female were tiger ranger was the leader of the city, and we'll just copy and paste that in as well so that we have that for reference. And Control Shift V. And what was the name? I think, oh yes. I normally put that in people, but just for time's sake, we'll come back and look at that later. But yeah, we'll throw that on the list. I think that could be very cool, and I'm just going to put on here, Humoresques. And I will put that down as well. Humoresques' domain, kingdom is the wrong word, domain, the forests. Going back to talk about the seasons. Oh, we're going to put a page break. Oh, wait, no, we're not going to put a page break. We don't need a page break. All right, so we got Dulcis Giving. What do you think they're... I feel like they have a day of... The world is very heavily at war. I feel like the people of the world have chosen some time to be their sort of... This is our no arms period. This is the time when all of us just hang out. Maybe it doesn't happen every year. Maybe it's like once every 2 or 3 years. But this is the peace day. No one's allowed to battle. Everyone drinks and has fun. Everyone just goes home and chills. Probably much to the chagrin of some of the gods. And this probably only applies to the more civilized kingdoms. I imagine some of the gods still will get stuff done on this day and will be very effective for it. The gods that control things that aren't human, for example, Vosto controls some aberrations. I imagine those aberrations don't stop for this holiday, but most of the people of the world do respect it. So yeah, we'll do an Oracle's Day. That's one that's been mentioned. Second full week of the last month. Do we have a true neutral god? Yes, our pantheon is actually very established. We have a pretty cool pantheon that we come up with. Our true neutral god is Cherish, the god of love and of craft by extension. And I will give you a link now. So if you're interested, Augustus, you can look at the document right here and look through all the notes we have on this world. There's tons of stuff on it. People have been going crazy in putting this thing together, which I appreciate. Yeah, we're up to 33 pages of world notes now. And I think that we've gone long enough. It is 9:57. I'm going to do it slightly early, but I'm going to take a moment and look at our results for today. We have Godrisk, Gagul, Kander, the Inklands, and Board Worlds. 6 total votes, which puts the Godrisk in the lead by exactly 1. Congratulations to Godrisk. You are the victor of this week. I will put you up at the top. Our name from last week was Godrisk, which means that we are about... Nope, don't want to do that. We are about to choose our name, and we'll do it at the end of the show. But I'm going to make the straw poll right now that will determine that. So which of these names would you like to use? And our choices, the final choices for our world are Osirum. The next one was, why can't I remember it? Dios, of course. The next one was Empyreon. And the final was Godrisk. All very good names. I will be happy with any of these that we end up picking. Please make your voice heard and vote on these. I'm going to post it here. I will create that poll. I'm going to post it here. Go up. Fresh poll, and I'm going to post it on Discord. Fresh poll. Wait, did I just post that in the right place? Nope, I didn't. I posted it in the live stream section. Whoops, meant to post it in the Hangout. Doesn't matter. All's fine. I don't think that sends notifications or anything. So make sure you cast your vote. Make your voice heard. In the meantime, I'm actually going to take a brief break, which is something we don't generally do, but I just need to take a quick break. So I'll be back in about 5 minutes. And in the meantime, sit tight, and I'll see you soon, and then we'll get back and really start cranking out some holidays. Alright, we are back. I'm very excited to find out. I'm very excited to find out what ends up being the name that we go with. It's been a long way to get here. Started from the bottom. Now we're picking a name, but I am thrilled about it. So let's get back to the very busy and very important work of talking about holidays. So we have our Oracles Day is one of the kind of the big holidays, and I imagine that this is a very grand celebration. I'm going to start just going ahead and taking notes on it. This is a grand celebration because this is a celebration of the important figures in the world. These are the leaders. So it's not that unreasonable that the people that rule the world would all kind of collectively agree on a day that they are sort of adulated. Or maybe they didn't sort of agree on it. Maybe it's just the commoners of the world have chosen a day to kind of rever those that are in power and those that are in control. And the oracles have different kind of degrees of influence, but at least one oracle in each of the gods' kind of factions has a great deal of control and are in a position of influence. I think a great example is, well, I guess, like I said, everyone has an example. So even Oniares, who's sort of a, his sort of domain is just the forest and the people within it, elves. There's still Amlin, the kind of queen of the seas, who's like this Triton queen that oversees all of Oniaras' navy, has unrivaled control of the ocean. So this individual who kind of shares the will of Oniaras with the people. Likewise, even the big treant, I imagine Mother Goose, which was a funny one, was a little bit less well-known, this kind of druid that just kind of sleeps deep within the forest alongside the Trask egg. What a wild world we've created, where I can say Mother Goose, the druid that sleeps deep within Oniaras' forest, caring for the egg of the ancient Trask that will someday be leashed upon the world. We've built a very cool world so far, guys, when I can make that sentence, and it's true about our place. But, very... did I open everything? Okay, cool. Just want to make sure that I didn't mess up coming back from a break. But I mean, even the treant, there's probably people that kind of worship the treant. Make it the first day of the last month. I like that. First day of the last month, whether the last month, is how I said that, whether that month is a month where no god has influence, or all of them do, it's a day to either prepare the oracles for the month coming ahead, or a celebration that their work is done for the year. I think that that's really awesome. And that's what I'm going to go with. So the last month, and I have fun doing this, so we haven't named our last month, and our last month is probably the name of the world. That was a suggestion that we had that I very much liked, and so we don't know what the name of the last month is yet. But we will in a little bit. We will in a little bit, so I'll come back and fill that in as a fun celebration of having a name for our world. I have so many, like, places on this document where I just have, like, a big underscore line to fill in the world name eventually. So Oracle's Day would be the first. It would be the first spirals. Whoop whoop. In whatever we end up going with for the name of the world, and it's a grand celebration. The people celebrate a year of work, whether it ends or it is a moment of preparation. And I think that Oracle's Day is probably the biggest holiday of the year. Actually, I've got a couple of things in cat. Psychopath, new light. First day of the year, the day Lux uses power to brighten the world. This is the longest day in the year. Hope and happiness fills it. Love it. Cut, paste, done. We're done. We got it. New light. And he probably goes first because he's in last. First spirals. Excuse me. First spirals in Lux. See, I'm already starting to learn the language. I know that Lux is the first month. I know that spirals is the first day, and I know that the way that you would say a day is blank blank in blank. So number 1 through 5, or number 1 through 4 spirals in a month. And I think that's a very intuitive system that we've come up with. Augustus Sachs. Does anyone know the website that allows you to write up things? I wrote up Mariam and a magic item, but can't remember it now. I do not know. Are you trying? I don't know. For one thing, I don't know what Zawarudo is, even though it's extremely familiar to me, that term. I don't know if that's the answer to that question, but the one that I'm thinking of, are you referring to the website that allows you to write stuff up in, like, the classic D&D style kind of fonts, and then it has the kind of, it has all the fonts and kind of backgrounds set up for you, and the templates already done? Because the one that I think you might be thinking of is homebrewery.com. Okay, yeah, so you might be thinking of the Home Brewery. It's a very good website. That's all I have to say about that. I recommend. I used to use that a lot too, until Jeremy came along and was the best at making those himself. Shout out to Trust a Flump, my boy Jeremy. So, we have Oracle's Day. I want to spend some time really getting into the nitty-gritty on Oracle's Day, because I like the direction that it's coming from. This feels like the big this feels like the celebration day. Oracle's Day is, we've spent a year preparing, we've made it through another year, all of the gods are active on Oracle's Day, so regardless of the order, the gods always communicate on the 10th month of the year with their oracles, and therefore, there's probably a moment where they give their first proclamation of the kind of new cycle, which is probably very exciting for the people that worship those gods, and for the people who are in the various kingdoms that worship those gods. So, Oracle's Day. First proclamation by the oracles. Day of celebration or preparation. It could be either one. I imagine Tizel's Oracle's Day looks a lot different than Lux's Oracle's Day. I picture Lux's Oracle's Day as just people in their various towns coming out, praising Lux's name, cooking and celebrating and mingling amongst each other, as opposed to Tizel's Oracle's Day is just a military drills. It's just all of the people in Tizel's respective army kind of gathering, soldiers amassing, and they hear which place is the next one that they are going to be destroying. Irony Golem. Important holidays are something spring, something summer, something autumn, something winter. Each has many established tropes. That is very true, and actually was thinking very much on the same page as you, Irony Golem, is that once we'd established our seasons, that we would kind of have a better idea of what we wanted our holidays to be like, but we've ended up creating a world that has a very kind of odd season system, and the months work in very odd ways, so we can't use a lot of those tropes, I feel. The reason is because they establish quarterly business cycles. Whole world speaks of business around these 4 days. When contracts come due, weddings, people travel hundreds of miles for weddings. Yeah, and I imagine Oracle's Day is one of the big ones for that, because that's something that's reliable. That is a natural event in this world. The ability for the gods to communicate with the oracles is a natural event in this world. And it's one of the... I'm not going to say one of the... it's probably the most reliable, naturally occurring thing in the world that we've established. So, new orders from your gods, that's a day of importance and celebration. Can you guys think of any fun kind of like Oracle's Day traditions that there might be? Something a little bit more mundane. So, I imagine that there's probably plays. Some of the what's the word that I'm looking for? Some of the children and actors of the world probably come out during this time. I imagine there's a lot of plays that emphasize mythology in a lot of ways. Things like the personal relationships of the gods. Sort of, you'll see the sides of the gods that they show to each other. Much in the way that kind of Greek mythology humanized the gods in a lot of ways. I imagine there's a lot of stories about kind of the early days of the world which were planted there by the gods, I imagine, in some extent, because this world was just kind of came into existence fully formed and functioning, with a sort of a fake history of how everyone got there. Sheba, lotteries in towns where 3 people... Or, well, actually, Vosto's Trickstorm. A random day during the month of Vosto, where in a random place the world is plagued with wacky, weird, and sometimes deadly magic. I'll put it in weather. We're putting it in weather. It's in weather, kind of. We didn't actually have a thing called weather, but I'll bold it. Lotteries in towns where 3 people get to be chosen as a day for an oracle in their town. Be oracle for a day. I like it a lot. What would be like a fun sort of... Irony Golem. Apollo games were huge. Olympic events, horse racing, tons of drinking, gambling, tourism. Yeah, for sure. I imagine that Oracle's Day is a lot like Apollo games. If your seasons have a kind of a drought famine season, this holiday of standing tough would be about then. Do the gods each have a birthday? I mean, they can. What do you think? I don't know. Do they? Probably, yeah. I don't see why they don't have at least a day that could be in particularly dedicated to each of them, probably in each of their months. Maybe it's the kind of the final day of their month. Maybe it's the same for all of them, or maybe it's just a random day in their month. Maybe that's how they determined turn order, was by the order of their birth. From the closest day. That sounds like a game mechanic that would have come up. Be Oracle for a day. I want to make sure I get that down. 3 people from each small town are chosen to be oracles. Pass decree and have minor ceremonial roles in sundry in sundry kind of presentations. So I imagine that if you're an oracle for a day on Oracle's Day, then it's kind of like just a fun thing where everyone in the town gets together. Anyone who wants to do it puts their name in. They pick out a few people. Usually it's like little kids and stuff that are the oracle, and they get to kind of like tell people what they want to do for the day, and you know, kind of tell them what dishes they're going to be making and stuff like that. I think that could be pretty fun. Oracle could be the trope of wormhole aliens. Any one of hundreds of high-intelligence species live around you. They appear like Groundhog Day. The giant eagles come on a certain day. The fishing, the fishing season will be awesome. If not, very bad. I like the idea of doing a very Groundhog Day-esque kind of event. I wonder whose that would fit into. That sounds like an Oniares holiday to me. A very nature... Oh, Jesus. Undo. That is not what I wanted to do. Insert row below is what I wanted to do. So we're going to call it Groundhog Day until we have it. So, oh, you're thinking Zeeth. So maybe it's the, and I'm just going to pick it arbitrarily, and I haven't learned the 4th. So maybe this is the 4th, or the 3rd Gerals in Zeeth. And this is sort of their Groundhog Day-esque event, where a prediction is made about... And I can see it, yeah, so Zeeth kind of makes a prediction about the future, about some kind of thing that's going to happen in the world, based on some arbitrary criteria. I'm down to go, like, 1-to-1, just subbing, like, 6 more weeks of winter for maybe, like, 6 more years of brutal combat, or, you know, replace the groundhog with some other, probably larger scale natural phenomena. Or maybe it's something really simple and mundane. Does anyone have any kind of ideas along that time? Maybe it's something dumb like, I guess I instantly was kind of connecting a shadow because I'm thinking of the groundhog again, but like if rain falls upon, upon the, what is the, what's like an important thing? We actually haven't established a lot about Zeeth. I think Zeeth is our least kind of known god, so I like that we're kind of coming up with something cool about Zeeth right now. If rain falls upon the petals of the... What's a cool sounding word for a flower? What's a cool... what is Golthius? I know that that's something in nature, like I've heard Golthius staff before, and I cannot think of where I know that from. The Golthius flower. Or if that's something that makes no sense in this context, let me know. If rain falls upon the petals of the Golthius flower in the center of Zeeth, because I believe Zeeth's main city was named after Zeeth. That was a thing I think we had established. Or maybe that was the full name. It was Zethleon. Then there will be violent war in the upcoming years. It's just a first kind of stab, but if anyone has anything cooler to throw out there, please let me know. And I imagine that happens every year, and it's almost like it's just become kind of like a joke to Zeeth Zeeth herself and the people of the town who are a little bit, I think, above, or I say town, the city of Zeeth, who has this control over time. I imagine they're a little bit aloof to a lot of the events happening in the world. So every year when they know that rain is going to fall at this exact time, and they kind of watch it wet the flower, they all kind of gather around, and then they look out at the world around them in kind of this ever-raging war and chaos, just like, looks like it's going to be another year of war, and it's almost like a sarcastic kind of mocking thing. I like that condescension. Team Opal, you private messaged me a quick calendar you made for Worlds in Discord. Allow me to take a look at that. Oh, that's pretty cool. Spirals, bagels, mondrels, geralds, and darrels. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, Opal. Irony Golem's throwing out another day. An Oracle Day can be won in Meso Worlds. I'm not sure how to pronounce that world, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher it, but I'm going to say Ahiaska. Everyone drinks the next dimension shaman potion and has visions, each their own. Holidays of the time we defeated some enemy, holidays of the some beloved resource comes to harvest on that time, and we have the holiday of the grape or seal pups or whatever. Yeah, absolutely. Those are both kind of classic archetypes. I'm sure there's some kind of, big high-yield harvest. Do you guys think that... Yeah, it's awesome, Opal. I love it. You should post it in the art gallery on the Discord there. I like the idea of a sort of harvesting holiday, and I imagine the things that are of value in this world to harvest, it's not necessarily crops. I mean, I'm sure there's... the seasons probably vary very much because of the way that the seasons in this world vary, and there's not really seasons in this world. So, I think that a harvest day would be more referencing to sort of internal, some more kind of like underground resources, things like natural gas. So here's an idea I've just had. Perhaps there is, and y'all let me know if you come up with a cool name for this, a natural geyser. We're actually going to say a geyser of natural gas is active for 2 days every year. Actually, 2 days... I'm even going to go farther. I'm going to go 4 days every 2 years. I think that's a little bit more interesting. So, every year, there's kind of a scramble from various people to reach this particular location, and... and harvest this important resource that kind of only springs up at this very regular interval. Which feels like a kind of a natural resource scramble that would be common in this world. Conflict and jockeying for position over the kind of spout is common, but they're and I imagine for this kind of holiday that we're coming up with now, there's kind of some camaraderie among the various nations, because everyone wants to get this one resource, and it's hard to get, and there's a short time window, and if they just fight over it, no one's going to get it. So there's some always arguments, but these are more like kind of a political summit meeting, and there's relative peace on these days, and maybe this is our peace period, and there's a reason for our peace period. So Oracle's Day isn't necessarily absolute peace, but I bet you all of the gods want some of this important natural resource. Oh, Augustus, it seems like your link has been deleted. Yes, unfortunately, DnDTime's powerful bots destroy all links that attempt to be put into Twitch chat here. But if you have something that you want to link, you can do so on our Discord server. Just toss it in the Hangout or the off-topic, whatever you feel is more appropriate. And if you're not on our Discord, server already, just go ahead and look underneath just go ahead and look underneath the stream here, and there are links to all the stuff about how to get involved with DnDTime related stuff, which I'll talk about more at the end of the stream. But once you're there, I can you should be able to PM me. I'm just Pete on Discord. It should be easy to find. So yeah, so I imagine this is a period of peace, and it's all to harvest this important sort of natural resource. Does the bot kill Zeldas too? Oh yeah, absolutely. It kills everything. Anything that you would put forth, it defeats nearly instantly. Raventail. It's gotten out of control, really. Spectator bot. Actually, Spectator bot's not even on right now. Twitch bot needs to be stopped. It has become a menace to all Links and Zeldas everywhere. Augustus saying you're on mobile. You should be able to still be able to do that on mobile. And if you're having trouble with it, I can kind of help you out after the stream. My computer always wants me to do things. Hashtag not all heroes of time. Oh geez. Oh geez. Peace period. So as they work together to harvest the resource. Alright, cool. I like this. And we have some kind of cool traditions. I like some of these kind of goofy traditions. I would absolutely run an adventure on Oracle's Day. It is like the idea of kind of having the oracles who are kind of kids or maybe just like bossy weird adults who like to kind of like push people around on Oracle's Day is this like outdated tradition that most people don't like. I like the idea of being able to kind of sell off some world points with the different little like plays that kind of go through and move through some of the mythology. And then there's also the more kind of grand scale ceremonial stuff where the actual oracles take actions and speak. I think that's a holiday that's really going to pull people into the world. And that's the thing that's always our goal with DnDTime Worlds, is to create aspects of the world that tell a story, and I think this does. Create aspects of the world that focus on the kind of some of the smaller aspects of world building that are often neglected. And that's a thing that I like doing is really addressing the nitty-gritty. Like, I like that idea of the kind of small town, 3 people become oracles, because that emphasizes how this world with all these... because this is a crazy place. This world has all these huge-scale conflicts amongst gods, and it's nice to think about how those conflicts affect just the regular people. And for the same reason, I really liked Dulcis Giving, just this, like, kind of whimsical holiday where people are afraid of Vasto pulling minor pranks on them. Like, that feels very realistic and medieval to me. On New Light, can healing magic be affected as if under Beacon of Hope, and all diseases and poisons are suppressed during the day? I think that that's cool, and I'm going to put it down. Irony Golem Holiday Empire Day. On this day, at some point, some major capital city, the royal core open, and the mummies and regalia of former rulers slowly walk to the shrine of the state. Oh god, that's brutal. That's really cool sounding. I don't know. I wonder what kingdom that would be. That sounds like a Karosia thing. Although Karosia's kingdom is very scary. But oh yeah, that's absolutely a Karosia thing. For anyone unfamiliar, and I'm going to move up to Karosia so you can see how well this fits within Karosia's domain. Empire Day. And that's going to be the second, what's the 5th day? Daryl's, the second Daryl's in Karosia. And the thing about Karosia is Karosia rules an undead empire. It's kind of, her kingdom is concentrated in one very small place, and she is a kingdom of undead. And on that day, that feels very much like something that wouldn't be Karosia's style, but it would be just kind of the kingdom of undead's style. The people within that place have just kind of developed their tradition on their own, and Karosia doesn't really care as long as it's not getting in the way of what she needs and wants. they can kind of do this little procession anytime they want. But I love the idea of some of like the elder and kind of forgotten oracles that have already fallen in this city walk down the street, kind of arise, kind of acknowledge the current ruler, which shifts very frequently as Karoja is a little bit mean with her oracles, allows them to be sacrificed very quickly. I believe one of her oracles was like Skeleton 350, or more like 1052. She kind of plays this game with her oracles where she sees how far she can individually get them by controlling them and moving them into enemy camps, as just kind of like a mini game that she's built for herself within this world. I like it very much. I think it's very cool. Yeah, that works really, really well in that kingdom. Conflict is not a word, and neither is camaraderie. Very good. So we got a bunch of holidays. I think that's pretty cool. I think we've got some. I think we've got some holidays that are going to work well in this world. We have about a half an hour left. In that time, we are going to finally reveal the name of our world, which I am going to. I'm going to link that one more time. Oh, damn! Hold on a second. It looks like Empyreon is already ahead. I didn't mean to. Well, oh well. I didn't mean to reveal it on stream or I guess you can all see where it's at anyway. So make sure you vote on what you want the name of the world to be before time's up. But it looks like there's spoilies. It looks like there is a pretty tight ballot right now, and I'm excited to see if Dios and Empyreon, who now appear to be very clearly battling it out for first place, which one of them takes it. So we got to me, there's a clear divide between what a holiday means and the loudest thing people do on that day. They don't always link at any surface level. Yeah, I am 100% with you. I think that the Oracle's Day is a good example of that. The day is about the day that Oracles gain their power back, but what people do is drink and eat and give kind of goofy orders to each other. There's a holiday for costumery and decorating the whole city with flowers. As to why, it's hard to say. Yeah, I actually really like that. I'm just going to take that as a note, and we'll see if there's a place that we can put it in. Raventail mentioned Zelda offhandedly a little while ago, and now all of a sudden it's just kind of in my head. Alright, so we're going to talk a little bit about races and classes, and I think just for a change of pace, because we've been doing holidays and calendars for quite a while now, actually. I am going to run up and take a look at some races. Oh man, Augustus, we'll get you figured out. We'll get you figured out. So this is a thing that I don't want to spend a ton of time on because, again, with the world that we've built thus far, it's pretty loose about what races are going to be in it, and I think a player, if they wanted to play literally any race in this world, I would allow them. I wouldn't make this the kind of world where, like, if you're playing a dwarf, there's certain assumptions about what it means to be a dwarf in this world, and you have to act in a certain way, and, like, you couldn't even play a Furbolg, because no, there's no Furbolg in this world. The Furbolg were killed in the Ancient War. I think it's just, this world, it's very all over the place. It's pretty wild. Yeah, the invite link, it should be the one beneath the screen. Oh, because you're on mobile, you can't access it. If you want to go on mobile, Augustus, if you want to go on mobile, Augustus, and click to show in desktop mode, that's a thing that they should have somewhere on Twitch. You should be able to find the link to the Discord. Also, go on www.dndtime.stream. That'll also have the link to the Discord. I already go. Peoples with a patronage, a social leader, or mob of supporters, they carry the statue holiday or carry the dragon float costume. For sure. Copy, Pastorino. I will take it and move it back to holidays. Paste without formatting. Alright. So, talking about races, it's common for people to have very strict restrictions on how a race is played in their world, or what races are allowed in their world, but as I was saying, our world is so wacky that you can do whatever you want. Yeah, Warforged. I think Warforged are actively going to kind of be in this world, because a Warforged in the kingdom of Palin, that's a very construct-heavy kingdom. It's sort of this utopia-like place where constructs fight all the battles, Modrons, golems, etc., and the people just kind of live in relative peace. And I imagine some important generals have been made into Warforged and stuff like that. Yeah, Palin's got all them constructs. Utopia, yeah, dystopia, utopia, what have you. Either way, sort of a city on the hill kind of place. Everybody also, skeleton should be a race. Yeah, I mean, skeleton is definitely a thing that people could play. I don't know if there's a skeleton that's been brewed up in any official D&D capacity via Unearthed Arcana or otherwise, but I mean, I would allow people to do a skeleton if they wanted to in this kind of place. But let's talk about, is there any race in this world that we think might have a lot of significance to play in one aspect or another? The one that I was really thinking, I think if you're playing, for one thing, we've established that half-orcs, orcs, hobgoblins, and I've copied and pasted basically every currently playable race into this little list. That's what this list is. But we've established half-orcs, orcs, hobgoblins, and goblins as being under the realm of Tazel. So I imagine if you're playing one of these creatures in our world, and we're going to start making a table here. Oh, geez. We're going to make a table here. If you're playing any one of these races, you're probably under Tazel. You probably have some sort of military background. Or if not, escaped that fate for some reason or another. So that's just like a rough note. Like, these are going to be just kind of like ideas for inspiration of characters. These are just going to be ideas for inspiration of characters, because like, if you're playing an orc in this world, you're probably work for Tazel. Orcs are kind of the main foot soldiers of Tazel's lawful evil army, and that would be, I think, an interesting character. If you wanted to play one that actively worships Tazel and play kind of an evil character in this world, there's a lot of kind of directions you could take that. You could also play a good character that's a deserter of the army, or you could play someone who's like was just whisked away at a young age, or, I mean, again, I would let people play whatever they wanted in this world and make it fit, but those kind of races fall into that kind of military bearing category, which I think is a good sort of place to start. And that's something that would be a little bit more unique. Hobgoblins are generally that anyway, but I think orcs are more kind of tribal. Goblins aren't quite as organized or treated with the same level of respect, but I think in Tazel's army, it's only strength that matters. Goblins aren't necessarily inferior to orcs. If a goblin is better than an orc at something, they'll still rise. So in that way, they're all kind of in the same sort of they're this same sort of tier. If there's not a brewed up skeleton, maybe you should make one. Yeah, I mean, we could do that at some point. Although that's usually the brews sort of thing. The utopia of a population that does not think and therefore cannot be sad. Well, I was thinking, Sheba, with regards to, I think you're referring to Palin's kingdom. Palin's kingdom, I think, also has some of the regular races. I think Palin's kingdom has humans, has elves, and those people live in luxury while the robots go out and do all the fighting. The robots... Could I be a half-elf were-tiger in this world? I don't see why not. I certainly don't see why not. I mean, most things are under Tazel if you include all the slaves and unwilling soldiers. Yeah, I mean, that's an unpleasant thought, but certainly that is true. Humans, so let's look at all these races. Aarakocra, they don't really have a race. They don't have really a place in our world. I don't think there'd be anything in particularly important about the Aarakocra. Aasimar. The Aasimar, so I'm just going to put like a highlight on them, and that color is going to be light green, and that color, actually we're going to make that color light orange. And that color means that this doesn't really have a place in our world. Aasimar. This world is disconnected from the multiplanar system in a lot of ways, so I think if you're playing an Aasimar, that would be cool, but it would require... and we're going to create a whole section for those. Oh no! And bugbears, we're going to throw into this category. We're going to create a whole section for planar races, things that assume kind of some outside influence. So if you're an Aasimar, you're touched by the celestial plane. They don't really have access to the celestial plane in this world, which means it's odd that you're here to begin with. So there's a story there, but you would have to come up with why this celestial character is at this plane. So we're going to insert a row before and just planar beings. ASMR. ASMR. That don't belong in this world have entered through some outside influence. Oh, you're saying, so you don't have were creatures on the list, so they wanted to ask. Yeah, if someone wanted to be a were creature, I would probably just use the, I would use the notes in the monster manual to take whatever thing that they were normally, and then add the were lycanthropy, cursive lycanthropy feature to them, and sort of, were creatures on in this list. This list is just made up entirely of the races that are official playable content, like produced. Not even Unearthed Arcana. These are just the races that are 100% out there. Aasimar, so Aasimar we're good with. Dragonborn, we don't have anything established about Dragonborn. I don't think it necessarily means anything to be a Dragonborn in this world, and so that's the same reason we're going to highlight that orange. Dwarves. Now, dwarves, we've established... dwarves... I'm looking at V-Bunny. Aarakocra could maybe align with any of the groups. Aasimar can align with the Blind Guy as soldiers. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I could see either of those things. I can see those alignments happening. It'd just be a question of, like, they don't have to go any one way. There's nothing that we've, like, established about any faction that means that these things are part of this faction. Dwarves, we've very clearly given dwarves a home with Cherish. We know that dwarves are artisans, live underground, which is kind of standard for them. So these are things that are true about all dwarves, pretty much, but mine for Cherish. Neutral. Dwarves are very neutral in this world. They ignore the kind of conflicts up above. So dwarves do kind of have a place that we've established for them. So it does kind of mean something to pick a dwarf, but again, you know, I'd let anyone play anything. Elves. Elves are a funny one, which is surprising that we haven't said anything about what elves are in this world, but we don't know anything about elves, so elves are another orange. Furbolgs are another orange. Nothing big about Furbolgs. Nothing big about Genasi. Gith. Gith would fall into the planar beings for sure. Gnomes, we don't know anything about gnomes. Goliaths, nothing about them. Half-elves, naturally, nothing about them. Halflings. Humans are part of Vosto's kingdom, but I guess there's kind of just assumed that they're in more than one place, but we have not established that. What do you guys think of making humans kind of exclusively in Vosto's realm? Which I guess feels... it feels a little bit wrong almost to put the humans as the lawful good race. Like, inherently worships the lawful good race, but, I don't know, I kind of like it. I'm sorry, I'm saying Vosto, I meant to say Lux's kingdom. I meant to say Lux's kingdom. I'm a dummy. Vosto can have... yes, I've made a mistake. Boom. So we got humans kind of have a little bit of a place. Kenku, I love Kenku, but they don't have any home. Kobolds, kobolds we haven't really established for anything either. Lizard folk, tabaxi, all good to go. Tiefling would probably fall into the planar beings section. Cut planar beings and tieflings. Tortle, nothing there. Tritons, Tritons we've established as being part of Oniara's clan. And insert row above, which is interesting. Tritons, Oniara's. Very good, and then Tortles and Yuan-Ti Purebloods. Both of I would also call orange. So yeah, all of these kind of... Boop, boop, boop. Vosto gets his tieflings. Yeah, maybe Vosto uses a lot of tieflings, but tieflings are technically influenced by the kind of, by the more infernal places of the world, so it would make sense to me that tieflings might not exist in this world. Like, you might not be able to play tiefling, and if they are existing in this world, then that would mean that they've been brought in from the outside, because this world, again, is cut off from the planar system. There's no, technically, 9 hells in the arcane kind of mythology of this world. People in this world aren't aware that the 9 hells is a place. So it's a little bit trickier for, like, a thing like a tiefling to work, because there's no infernal legacy here. This world's been cut off from that. And maybe they're just here because some of them are just, they just are, which is fine. But I might kind of tell people they can't play those things if I was running this world. That might be the only restrictions, would be like Aasimar, Tiefling, Aasimar, Aasimar, what have you. Tiefling, what's the other one that I picked? The Gith. Those all kind of fall into that category for me. And I think that's about... They could have been brought here by the gods, exactly. And the next week, one of the things that we're going to be doing, and maybe as we're kind of rounding out, because we're kind of approaching near the end, if there's anything that you guys want to really talk about, right now, let me know, and we can do a couple more quick things. But as kind of thought for the next time that we do this, we have established at the very beginning of this day, this was day 1, we talked that we wanted to have this whole sort of rebellion. We wanted to have this whole sort of... Sucks to your ass, Mark. We wanted to have this... That's very good, I can tell. We wanted to have this whole rebellion where people were rebelling against the gods and rising up, and eventually, once they learned that their whole world was going to be destroyed, once the outcome of this game was determined, they would be inclined to even battle the gods, or in some way escape the world that they are in, or turn the tables, so to speak, on the deities on high. And I imagine the presence of strange outer planar beings might be one of the things that has allowed for the rebellion. I'm sure there's lots of powerful factions, people like Asmodeus and the Devils, or even kind of some of the good gods, which is interesting. I know so much more about, any of the demon lords. Your Demogorgon might want to destroy this place because he wants to destroy all things, and so he has a cult or servants that he has snuck into this world through one means or another the gods aren't even aware of. And so some of these other kind of beings might be clues in the long run to, learning that this world is isolated, and that this world is very clearly controlled, and that eventually it will end, and that time is soon. Which, again, I think that could be very cool, and that's something that I think everyone should think on in the upcoming weeks. In the upcoming weeks, as we go back in and really dive in on what the rebellion is like. We're going to be coming up with, like, the major figures of the rebellion, in what ways it functions, like how well known it is, how many people are in it, how they learned about, the information that they have, if they have any allies. Maybe one of the gods is, like, slipping information. There's already a thing that Bionic Sheba put in that I'm going to be using in the section about Vosto. I suggest you all kind of check out the document over the course of the next week and look at some of the stuff about one really funny character. Actually, I can just go to it now and show you guys, because we didn't talk about this. But where is Vosto? We have wait, was it? Where's Vosto? Oh, there's Vosto. We have Verstra, which was an Oracle Beholder that was discussed, which was about a holder that is insane, but also intelligent enough, the kind of right combination of those two things, to have kind of pieced together enough of the rules of the game that he is starting to understand how the world works and that they are playing a game, and he just follows orders in order to, you know, stay alive and continue being an Oracle and to be useful, so that Vosto will rely on him more and he can learn more information about the game. And he's just kind of the right combination of crazy and intelligent to believe in this thing, and maybe that's a character that has leaked information to the Rebellion because this individual wants to live and not die at the end of the game. I like this kind of character a lot, but those are the kind of things we're going to be talking about next time we do this, as we really get into the nitty-gritty on what this Rebellion is like. Because I'm excited about that. That's a thing that we did not really touch on after we said it, but I know that that's something that's important to this world. And I think that is, I think that's going to do it for today, which means that we're going to be at the point now where we do the thing that I've been very excited for, and I'm going to refresh the results, and the results are in, everybody. I would say drumroll please, but you can already see it. The winner is Empyreon by 2 votes, edging out Dios. We have the name of our world. We're talking about Empyreon is our world. I'm pumped. It's an awesome name. I liked it. The one that I secretly wanted to win was actually Empyreon. I thought that was a really cool name. I cast my own personal vote for Empyreon, which is actually, this is the first time I voted, but I figured on the final one I was allowed to take a vote. So, yeah, we're gonna be in Empyreon. I'm excited to go through the document and change all of those little things that said what the name of the world is. And also thank you to everyone who voted, and thank you to everyone who submitted names over the last couple weeks. And really, as we're getting down to it, just thank you. No longer D&D Worlds, now D&D Empyreon. Well, I'm not going to change the name of the show because we'll go on to other worlds. And I think after this week, we might do a more kind of, or not this week, but after this world is through, we might do a world that fluctuates a little bit more, and not like work on one world, but work on multiple aspects. Also, I don't know if you're messaging me on Discord right now. I feel like I'm going to regret saying this, but please hold off a moment, as I don't know why my Discord's making noises. It should be in streamer mode, but for some reason is not. So, yeah, that's about it. I want to say thank you to everyone who hung out. I really appreciate everyone building words with me, coming up with great ideas. You guys always come up with better ideas than I do, which is great, because the show wouldn't work if you didn't. Very funny irony column. Which world is yours? The one that says bad motherfucker on it. That would be... I don't think that would be a good world name, but I still want it to be a world name at some point. But yeah, thank you again so much for hanging out, talking about stuff with me, world building. Oh, well, I love you too, Xanderil. I love all of you guys. Y'all are the best. This is always... big hearts. This is always a lot of fun. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with more DnDTime Worlds. But we're going to be back before then with bigger stuff. So we do this every other Tuesday, but tomorrow we do DnDTime Talks, where what we're going to be doing is talking about skill checks. Myself and Jeremy, no, don't worry about it, Augustus. Myself and Jeremy, Trust a Flump, if you've seen him in chat tonight, we are partners in crime, and we discuss various topics on Wednesdays. This week we're going to be talking about skill challenges, and skill checks, more specifically is what I meant to say. When and where to use them, how often to use them, why to use them, and just a general kind of breakdown on skill checks. Part of the game that a lot of people get wrong, myself included. It's a really kind of like, it's a surprisingly intricate topic, which I don't think it would seem like just saying like, oh yeah, well you just call for skill checks and people do them. There's a lot more to it than that. We're going to break down skill checks. That usually lasts an hour, and that's at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, or 9:30 or 6:30 Pacific Standard Time tomorrow. And then on Friday, and this is the big one, it is Pete and Jeremy's D&D Time. That is a show that myself and Jeremy also run at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Fridays, where we play one-shots. We run one-shots with people from our channel and community. Each one lasts an hour to an hour and a half. We run 3 of them every Friday night. It's always a lot of fun. Come play some games. And the reason it's in particularly significant this week is because it is our Carnival of Souls event. It is our big, huge annual Halloween event. It's going to be an absolute blast. There's exclusive loot. If you haven't already checked out said exclusive loot, you should go on our Discord server and look in the announcements where there's a link to the loot that is available. Everyone gets free items, it's going to be a blast, a big overarching storyline, tons of people going to be getting into it. The kind of last day of the event, there's going to be a lot of people that get to play. Should be a ton of fun. Me and Jeremy are both really excited about it, and that will be coming up this Friday, so make sure you check out that as well. And with that, that's all the kind of advertising I have to do. Oh, awesome, Opal. I hope we get to see you on. And I think with that, that's about all that we have for tonight. And so I think, without further ado, I'm going to say thank you, I love you, and I'm Pete, and I'm Pete, and this is DnDTime Worlds. Good night, everybody. Oh wait, wrong button. Duh!